Hello and welcome back to the Scaling Europe show. I'm Seb Johnson. We have got a banger of a lineup today. Before we get into it, quick shout out to my sponsor, SurrealDB, very new sponsor. They are building the multimodal database for AI agents, trusted by thousands of companies, including NVIDIA and Samsung. And of course, Checkout.com, who've been sponsoring me since day one of the UK's leading fintechs. But we have got a banging lineup today, so stay tuned. In front of me right now, we've got Mark, the CEO of Exmos. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thanks, Seb, and thanks for having me today.
It's my absolute pleasure. For those who don't know you and what you're kind of building and have built over a number of years, can you just give a bit more of an introduction to who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name's Mark Lipett. I'm the CEO of Exmos. Exmos make generative system-on-chip technologies. We've been in business for 20 years. So we've been building technologies that essentially enable software engineers to do the things that hardware engineers have historically only been able to do. So a combination of ability to shape the system interfaces, the control processing, DSP and AI to build custom SoCs for a wide variety of, to solve a wide variety of problems.
Amazing. And you've been at the company for, I think, most of its history, if not all of its history.
Yeah, I joined actually in the company spun out of the University of Bristol in 2005 officially. I joined in 2006, having sold my previous business and as VP of engineering, and I've been with the company in various roles since then, CEO for the last 10 years.
And how have you found the change in the transition from, back then to the last 10 years and especially the last 5 years when semiconductors have become and chips have become all the rage, super exciting, everybody's talking about them. How have you found that transition and change over time?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting time. I think particularly the last, 3 or 4 years during the COVID lockdown and so on. I mean, the semiconductor industry is always cyclical, but I think one of the more important and more interesting things that's happening at the moment is the way that the design process itself is being transformed in almost every area by virtue of the arrival of generative AI techniques. So I think, in the first, I guess, 10 years of the company's establishment, we were building chips, we were building effectively commercial viability, we were building beachhead markets to grow from, and as we've become more and more successful, we've been trying to essentially build our technology out into the system to gain more of this some customers bill of materials, if you like, using what I would consider to be more traditional embedded software design processes. But in the last few years, with generative AI, we've identified some game-changing approaches using a combination of generative AI and our existing silicon platform that I think are going to be very transformative. So I think we've done a great job in the last 10 years or so of establishing a reliable and scalable silicon platform. We've sold around just under 40 million units in that time, and now with the emergence of the generative AI tools flow, I think the next 10 to 20 years will be really, really exciting for us.
And can you touch a bit on how that generative AI is actually changing or impacting the way that you're designing these things? What are the specific use cases that it's transforming?
Well, there's a couple of ways actually. So one of the things when you bring to market a new approach is there's an educational requirement. You have to teach people about it. You've got unique and novel capabilities that bring tremendous value, but obviously they have to be leveraged through techniques that didn't exist before by definition. So, over the years, we've spent a lot of time developing the silicon platform, but also developing the tools to normalize, if you like, that experience for our customers. More recently, we've been using generative AI in two ways. The first way that we started to use Gen AI was in training, effectively training and customer support. So for a couple of years now, all of our traditional collaterals, all of the things that we build, documentation and other support resources have been pulled into a generative AI platform just in order to enable people to gain access to what is quite a significant amount of collateral more quickly. So everyone now has access to generative AI support tools through our website in whatever language they want to interrogate them. So that's the one thing. That's perhaps a slightly, perhaps slightly more, I guess, normal usage of generative AI, but the more transformative is actually in the tool flow itself. So the generative SOC concept is the combination of our existing Xcore platform. So the Xcore platform, just very briefly, obviously it delivers the flexibility that I just mentioned from, being able to do hardware-like things in software alongside all of the usual processing workloads. But also it delivers hard real-time performance. If you imagine you're doing if you're emulating a hardware interface in software, bad things can happen if you miss deadlines. So the fundamental founding principle of the Xcore architecture is you must never miss hardware deadlines. Now that actually gives us the way in which we solve that problem gives us an architecture that's very well partitioned from a functional and a timing perspective. And that means that we can deploy pre-existing blocks of function together in any combination and understand how those things are going to perform. And that means that we can use generative AI to stitch together systems. So generative AI that's learned about system composition from a self-supervised learning process across all of the web data. It can take all of that learning, build block diagrams, and we can build a tool flow that essentially goes from natural language to a design that not only works from a functional perspective, but also works from a timing perspective across all different use cases. And that's quite a novel and unique capability. And the great thing that does for our customers is it gets them to design from years down to months, down to days almost, by this, capability of just describing systems and deploying them on this super robust platform.
Is this the the lovable vibe coding moment for hardware chip design systems? Is that how you see it? Is that kind of, I don't know, is this what it sounds like when you talk about using natural language?
No, it is. It is. I think that the key thing to recognize that the thing that may make it slightly different to vibe coding, which I think tends to be associated more with, I guess, higher level kind of enterprise kind of software program is the combination of a somewhat vibe programming model with a very robust, bulletproof, highly partitioned platform gives you something you can take to scale, right, in an embedded system. So embedded systems, they're all about computation and timing, and you need a platform that will deliver computational and timing that is accessible through a generative flow. You might call it vibe programming. It's a bit more like the way that it's implemented is a bit more like putting blocks of pre-verified capabilities together. So maybe vibe composition might be a better way of putting it, but it's certainly some analogies there for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. And do you see, you've described some great use cases for generative AI at the moment in what you're doing. Do you see future use cases coming down the line when, I don't know, either the models get stronger or the technology gets better? Are there other ways that you're kind of exploring integrating this technology with your kind of core like operations and products?
Yeah, I mean, this is the way that things are going to get done, right? This is a transformative approach to building embedded systems, and I think it's interesting, sort of, to make a historical observation. As we've gone through the sort of 20 or 30 years of semiconductor platform development, you've seen, ARM-based system-on-chip products, which are sort of semi-hardened chips that are enabled by software abstractions like operating systems. And you've seen more recently NVIDIA that was enabled by the widespread adoption of CUDA. And this is going to be the same enabling capability for embedded systems. So lifting the abstraction for embedded system design from an abstraction where you need to be platform aware, and let's not fool ourselves that one ARM-based system on chip platform is very much like another one. When from a programming perspective, they have different performance, different capabilities, different peripherals. This lifts the abstraction above that, so that embedded systems designers can just think in the language of their application. They don't need to think about the complexities of deployment. So I think this is to answer your question, this is a I would say a revolution, not an evolution. The underlying XMOS platform, the XCore platform, is, as I mentioned, it's not specific to any particular market. So our opportunity is to grow significantly beyond the commercial footprint that we currently have. And we've got proof points in many different markets, from e-bikes through commercial robotics to voice interfaces, and they all use the same silicon with different software builds. And by enabling that software to be deployed through a generative AI tool flow, it's just, it's as I say, it's transformative.
No, it's really cool. And, I was doing my research and I was looking at the history of XMOS. It looked like the company started in like a niche, I would say, like a relatively small niche. But it now feels like this unlock is going to massively open up the market for you, and to take the company from being a niche player to like you said, like anybody can access or use this who's in this world. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think one of the key hurdles with any company that is bringing new technology to market is that initial, sort of education of how do I get started? What's this hello world look like?
Yeah.
And this delivers, a completely seamless experience so far as that concerned. But also, you can get to a product that you can deploy at scale in no time at all. So yes, I think this is completely. It's going to completely change the nature of our business.
Yeah, really exciting. I also wanted to ask about the state of kind of, I guess, this broader industry, the broader kind of semiconductor industry in Europe. It doesn't feel like there's been a huge amount of success generally in the industry compared to players coming out of Asia or the US and, of course, NVIDIA. Why do you think that is? Like the UK and Europe has such amazing technical talent, academic, amazing universities, amazing academics. Why do you think we generally haven't been able to crack this industry?
That's a really good question, and I get asked that quite a lot from various different areas. But I think my answer is that in Europe, and maybe I should probably comment more on the UK, since that's my nearest experience. There's a tremendous focus on startups, on novel, scientific approaches, which I think is laudable. And I think, by the way, we're really, really good at it. So no, I'm not arguing against that at all. But what I am saying is that as a country, we need to take a portfolio approach. The problem is that if you don't have deep technology, scale up businesses, successful businesses that are profitable, that have capital to deploy, then there's nowhere for those small startup companies to go if they're looking for an exit. And consequently, you tend to find that many companies reach a certain level and then exit to a US business. Those businesses are publicly traded. They come under pressure to cut costs occasionally. And the natural thing to do under those circumstances is to look to your satellite offices. So I think we tend to find that a lot of our promising businesses are getting bought early, and potentially then getting, the talent is getting redispersed. So I think what we need is more arms, more companies that have reached a size where they can be the acquirers and, retain the concentrations of talent, because obviously, the talent doesn't, people do move and come back, but it just gets dispersed. And it's these sort of concentrations of talent that you need to develop in order to get a thriving ecosystem.
And do you think that the government should play a role at all in trying to either help those companies get to that scale where they can become the acquirers, or, I don't know, do more to try and keep the talent here? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think so first of all, I think credit where credit is due. I think we do have tax advantages. We do have grants that are available either through the UK government or collaborations with the EU. So those things are possible. But I think the key thing is really about the availability of equity-based capital. There is, as I said, compared to the US, the intersection of scale-up funding and deep tech funding, I think is very underserved at this point, and that's an area where I think the government can encourage additional investors to step in, additional investors to get involved, and I think to be fair, I think they're very aware of that and working very hard on it, but it just hasn't happened yet.
And how have you thought about funding yourself? Like, I don't think Exmos has raised money in that kind of way for a number of years. Is that something that you need at some point? Is that something that you're looking at now that you kind of got this evolution of using generative AI in your products? Is that something you're thinking about?
Yes, I think Exmos is in a good position, so we can scale in our current with our current context. I think the thing I always say when you come across a really great idea is you're probably in a race. You may not know who it's with yet, and consequently under those circumstances, new capital is beneficial. So I think one way or another, Exmos is going to be successful. I think the question is how hard we can put our foot on the gas, and that comes down to investment capital.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always the case, right? You can go much faster with a lot more money, and you can be a lot more targeted. How does the business think about, this is like, most of the founders that I speak to are software fundamentally, either B2C or B2B, and there's quite well-known sales motions, right? Either you're kind of B2B go-to-market type selling, or you're consumer focused, trying to get viral TikToks or whatever. How does a business like yours think about commercializing and selling your products? What does that look like in terms of selling?
Yeah, I guess the interesting thing about semiconductor companies is quite often your customer, as in your user, is not your buyer. So there's a well-established flow of value through the OEMs to the ODMs, who are quite often designing the product nowadays, to the contract manufacturers and so on and so on. So I guess the first point about that is you have to sell to multiple parts in that value chain. You can be very convincing to the OEM, and then the ODM makes a different decision. So we have multiple touch points along the value chain to reach the right answer. And fundamentally, people are interested in value. I mean, the sell to an OEM might, for our technology, for Xcore technology, might be, we can get you to market quicker, which, by the way, is the most important thing that you can provide to them. The sell to the ODM might be, that problem that the OEM is challenging you with, that's going to take you 6 chips. Well, use Xcore. You can do it in 1, right? So there's an economical argument there. To the contract manufacturer, maybe there's another argument. There are different value propositions to different parts of the value chain, and you have to acknowledge each one of them. Otherwise, there's nothing more frustrating than winning the OEM and losing the ODM, because you don't get volume, and that's the only way that a semiconductor company makes money.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting. So you're kind of navigating different stakeholders with different priorities, but ultimately trying to win them all.
Absolutely, yeah. And you have to touch them all. You can't be sort of arrogant about the value you deliver to the OEM and forget to talk to the other people in the value chain. There has to be touch points throughout. Yeah,
interesting. And I wanted to talk more broadly about, I guess, the UK tech ecosystem as someone who's playing like a key role, I guess, in building like the hardware almost, like a really fundamental level of that technology. How have you seen the UK tech ecosystem change and transform? Especially, it seems like it's really centralized around London. And I know that you guys are out in Bristol. Like, how have you seen that change over 5 to 10 years? And what's it kind of been like building not within the central hub?
Yeah, it's interesting. So one of the things I quite often say to people when they say, "Where's Bristol?" People in the Bay Area, near San Francisco, is it's about as far away from London as San Francisco is from San Jose. And that's partly because the 101 is such a traffic nightmare. But there's not a tremendous amount of distance between anywhere in the UK, really. Now, one thing I would say to the question about London versus Bristol is, there's a lot of traffic between London and Bristol in terms of talent. Bristol offers slightly different things. It's a smaller city. It has access to countryside, to coastlines, and so on that perhaps London doesn't offer so much of. But it also, more importantly, perhaps is right at the centre of 3 key technology universities: Bristol, University of Bath, and University of West England. So it's actually a very it's quite a compelling place to build a technology business, particularly one that is based around computer architectures. Many computer architectures over the years have been developed in Bristol. and that sort of core DNA is still very strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an amazing place. Yeah. There's an amazing history of computer kind of evolution in that part of the world. And how have you seen, from your perspective, the tech ecosystem change? Like I've heard criticisms about UK tech for being too fintech focused because London is so financial services focused. Do you have a view on maybe we did make the wrong bets going so deep on fintech? Maybe we should have focused on other expertise that we have, whether it's in computing or hardware. I don't know, it's just to get your perspective from someone who has been building in this space for 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think there was perhaps too much emphasis on building breadth, not depth, in terms of technology. We all know that deep tech technologies have long, life cycles. They take it takes a long time to get, particularly for a semiconductor company, to get that first customer feedback, that first credibility. And it's very capital intensive. So you need sort of $10 or $20 million before you can have a product. It's just not the same with a fintech or a SaaS company, software as a service company.
Yeah.
Where you can place your bets a lot more broadly and perhaps reduce your risk in that way. So I think you're right. I think maybe there has been a little bit too much emphasis on that kind of business. And the unfortunate thing is that as a result of that, we're perhaps a little way behind where we need to be in terms of building the infrastructure of VCs that VC partners that have the background, that have the confidence to make a semiconductor investment or a deep tech investment, the funding available, the patient capital available, and so on and so on. So it's not going to be solved overnight, this one. But there are companies out there that are potential world beaters like Exmos that could really benefit from it, and it's definitely worth spending the time on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Mark, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining me. I've loved chatting. I think it's a super interesting business that you've built, and it's a business that we need so many more of in the UK and across Europe. So yeah, it's been great chatting, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure.
All right, let's chat soon. Hello and welcome back. I'm here with Johan, who is from FlowX. FlowX is a super interesting company. You're the founder, the CEO. Can you give us a quick introduction into what you've built?
Well, Sebastian, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. So what FlowX AI is doing is we're eliminating the demo to product gap for AI in regulated and mission critical workflows. So the FlowX AI team has been working over the past years to solve the complicated, the hard part of enterprise AI, which is making agents production grade in banking and insurance in particular. I think there's very, very few companies that can do that reliably and consistently in enterprise. And there's no companies that we know that can do it consistently in financial services.
And why do you think, I've seen lots of things about the adoption of AI within enterprise, and lots of enterprise pilots or trials are failing to deliver the value that they promised. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's many reasons for that, but I would focus on just a couple of things, which is, and I might, date myself here because this is from an old Pink Floyd song, which was had this thing in the chorus was you can't eat your meat you can't eat your pudding if you don't have your meat. And I think everybody's jumping is rushing to eat their pudding, but nobody's really willing to eat their meat. The truth is, the hard part in enterprise and AI is much less to do with AI, but with everything else. So in order to deliver AI in enterprise, actually 80% of the work just barely touches AI, to be honest, right? You need to plug into existing systems. You need to embed in existing mobile and web applications. You can't expect everyone to just rewrite their applications or deploy like a massive front-end development effort. But then you also need to provide auditability and explainability and deterministic consistency of the AI. You need to deliver guardrails and scalability and data privacy. And then there's, the industry-specific expertise. And these are the things that are very, very hard for most of the AI companies to do in the enterprise because they're coming from AI to the enterprise world. We actually have this concept that we're talking a lot about that we call AI Rails. And AI Rails for us is all the things that you need to do in order to be able to deploy AI successfully in large organizations and scale it successfully in large organizations. And the reason we call it Rails is because of this whole story. We're looking at how the American West was developed, right? And railroads played a very significant role in that. It was really not sufficient for to have just the technological innovation of the steam engine, but you needed something that was much, much boring than the steam engine. You needed that infrastructure of railroads. And that was required to be able to deploy the steam engine, trains powered by the steam engine, very fast and very reliably across the entire of US. And again, the metaphor I think still holds to date. We saw it with Ruby on Rails. Like Ruby was this really, really awesome programming language. I'm a huge fan of Ruby. And but the truth is, until 37 signals came along and put it on Rails, it was very hard to do any web development with it. But then, that opened up Ruby for web development. And then there's a lot of startups that, built on Ruby on Rails from literally the first days, from the first prototypes all the way to IPO and beyond. And, Coinbase, GitHub, Shopify, Airbnb. So some of the coolest startups were developed on Ruby on Rails. And it's the same concept. It's this idea of, beyond the technological innovation, having all the elements required to actually scale something.
And that makes, I can completely understand that. And so you're kind of building the infrastructure to enable the kind of adoption and the value. What is it about financial services? Because financial services itself often requires, its own rails to make it work. Very complicated, regulation heavy, compliance heavy, infrastructure heavy. What about financial services made you think that this is where you wanted to build?
Well, I think we're very excited in general about the enterprise world and financial services in particular from it. But if you come to think about it, there's been a lot of investment in the last 10, 20, 30 years in the consumer space. And even if you want to, if you're a good engineer, where do you go? Where do you typically go? You're not going to go to an enterprise, to a large organization, but you want to go to develop stuff for Google or Apple or Meta. And quite honestly, I think that's the wrong focus, because the world today is running on this layer of technology that's provided and this layer of services that is provided by enterprise companies, right? Whether it's banking, whether it's insurance, whether it's defense, agriculture, energy, utilities, you name it. But the world runs on enterprise software. And actually that layer of software is in not great shape, right? Everything takes massive amounts of effort and time and money to develop. And, we have this customer who came up with a very good image for it, which is it's an ocean of complexity that has overgrown, very organically and very uncoordinated for the past 50 years. And that's true. That's what it looks like. And we believe there's, enormous value for society and enormous value for the world in fixing that enterprise technology layer. Because today it's neither beautiful, it's neither fast, it's neither affordable, it's incredibly hard. It has been, and also the people who are working in that world and who are literally devoting their life to supporting civilization as we know it, they get very little recognition. They actually get pointed fingers at, and everybody's blaming them that the enterprise companies can have great experiences. Enterprise companies are very slow in delivering anything and take enormous amounts of money to deliver the smallest thing. And I don't think that's fair. And we just want to give a better technology layer to the people working in that environment, but also to the customers of the enterprise. And truly, if you want scale, right? You can think about, let's take a mortgage process, for example. If you can take out 30 minutes from a mortgage process, which today takes, weeks and weeks for an individual, it might not seem like much, but then when you multiply it with the entire population of the world that is accessing mortgages, you get to hundreds of lives of people that are just wasted in, without any point really.
Yeah, absolutely. And how's it going so far? You raised a big round. I think it was 2023, one of the biggest Series A rounds, I think, coming out of Romania. How's it been since then? What kind of traction, what success have you seen? Can you give any flavor to some real life customer examples that you're particularly proud of? Anything like that?
Absolutely. So since our Series A in 2023, we've been very much heads down into technology development. And we've been, our focus has been on exposing the technology and putting the technology in very, very complex environments. So, banks that are multinational banks and some of the world's largest institutions. And we've been working alongside the teams of these institutions as very much as strategic development partners. Now, in 2025, we came to the conclusion that finally we are at a point where we have something that is incredibly scalable and easy to deploy. So not only does it have all the rails, not only is it easy to build, but it is something that literally any bank can pick up. And this is what's proven by our traction since September, since we launched the new go-to-market motion, where we're seeing banks that are picking up AI agents from FlowX and deploying them in just a couple of weeks and going live with very, very complex use cases that are starting in production in literally just a couple of weeks. And we're talking about things like underwriting for commercial lending, for example. Our underwriting for commercial lending agent stack has 8 agents that are looking across the entire life cycle of the underwriting process. They're taking in all the financial documents, so things like balance sheets and P&L statements and cash flow statements. They're looking at shareholding agreements and foundational agreement. They're looking at contracts and purchase orders, and they're doing analysis of the space of the economic segment that the specific company is in, and they're able to run a very, very sophisticated analysis of the company within context, and even able to create a prediction of the KPIs for the specific business. So what's exciting about this is not just the fact that this is faster and much more efficient. I think this is more like RPA era kind of focus, but the fact that you're able to encapsulate world grade expertise, like top level expertise within this black box, a specialized mini brain that only does underwriting and is the best underwriter in the world and can help your underwriting existing teams so they can pick up things that are more like exceptions to the process. So again, I think that the scalability of expertise for us is the most exciting thing that we're seeing.
Yeah, amazing. It makes sense, and it feels like there's so much work to be done in enterprise, and especially in financial services, and bringing that level of kind of like expertise to the forefront. I think it's super interesting. I think if I understand correctly, you're kind of split between Romania and New York. Is that right?
Between Europe and New York, yes. We have our engineering and product team in Bucharest, and we're incredibly excited about the talent that that we're finding in that part of the world. And then we're an U.S. based company, so our headquarters are actually in New York.
And how do you find that split? You know, a lot of the founders that I speak to talk about the talent in Europe being much, or at least the same quality in America, but much better value, but that they've seen much greater sales success in America. Is that what you've seen as well? Are you selling equally to America and Europe, or are you predominantly focused on New York or American companies?
So for us, the engineering question has been less about the cost thing, and actually, if we're looking at the costs, I think Eastern Europe is by far not a low-cost option anymore. We actually don't really care much about cost when it comes to engineering, because what we're seeing is great talent is not just 10x better than okay talent, is 100x better or 1,000x better. I think Steve Jobs was talking a lot about that. So for us, Eastern Europe is just this incredible talent pool with a lot of background in mathematics and generally in STEM. And what's super interesting is, for example, Romania and Hungary have the highest ratio of medals to population at the International Mathematics Olympiad. And the engineering talent is just unbelievable in this part of the world. And in fact, if you're looking, some of the most talented AI engineers, some of the leading figures of the AI movement today are coming from this region. Karpaty, Satskaver, they're coming from Eastern Europe. So that's been very much kind of our driving our focus into having the product engineering team in Eastern Europe. But yes, indeed, for us, US is obviously by far the biggest and most exciting market.
And have you tried selling to Europe? You know, I sometimes hear people saying that European procurement is particularly painful, especially in the FS space, enterprise space, that it is very hard to get your foot in the door, very hard to sell to. Has that been your experience?
Well, pretty much so, but we have quite a few European customers already. And actually, because pandemics caught us as founders located at the time in Europe, and travel was very, very hard, we actually, our first customers have been in Europe. And I think, yes, like generalizations, what was the Oscar Wilde quote that every generalization is false, including this one? So I think we can find, when we found really amazing customers and people who wanted to pick up technology and deliver results, and who wanted to partner with us in delivering results in Europe as well. And that's been, some of our, highest contracts are today in Europe.
No, it's good to hear. It's good to hear. It's amazing. Yeah, it's always an interesting, especially founders with European backgrounds. I'm always interested to hear their experience moving to the US, selling there versus selling in Europe.
I mean, obviously, the US is a much larger market and much larger and, very consistent market across, a population of 300 million. And you get a lot more fragmentation in terms of regulation, and especially in financial services, like each country would have its own central bank that has specific regulation. But our focus has been very much on building the absolutely most robust product possible. And what we're finding is when you focus on building a great product, you actually stop caring about tweaking for, in each specific use case, because you're covering everything out of the box by default. So, while, we've experienced that, and one of our customers is this financial services group that is across 14 countries, I think at this point. And yes, there are significant differences between countries in terms of regulation. We never had any friction from a technology point of view deploying in different countries across Europe.
No, that's good to hear. I wanted to touch on like the vision for the company. You know, like let's look maybe 5 years down the line. If everything has gone perfectly well, where do you think the company will be in 5 years? And what kind of things do you think you would have achieved? Is it to be, you know, signed with 1,000, 10,000 enterprise clients? Is it to have the most proficient and powerful AI agents on the market? What does that vision look like, and how do you think you're going to get there?
I believe there's enormous value in transforming that enterprise technology layer that is, you know, has been aging quite seriously, and transforming that with AI and enabling it with AI. And quite honestly, we don't really have, you know, I think a lot of companies have these fundraising goals. We don't really have that. I think fundraising numbers are very much there's a lot of vanity game in the fundraising numbers and valuations. We really care about solving this problem of, you know, democratizing AI for everyone through these channel of enterprise customers. Because, and we're looking at, you know, some of our maybe even smaller client customers, they still have, you know, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million customers on their end. So whenever we're able to transform one flow in one bank, we're suddenly touching 3 million lives or 4 million lives. Wow. And that's an unbelievable feeling. You know, the potential that we can unlock there, I believe, is just enormous.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the volume of people who interact and use these companies on a daily basis is absolutely massive, right? So you're able to improve one thing, that it is transformative for millions. Well, look, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining me. It's been great chatting. I think it's a super interesting business that you're building, and I really appreciate you kind of taking the time to chat to me today.
Thank you, Sebastian. It was great to have the opportunity to chat today.
Amazing. Well, look, best of luck with it all, and let's stay in touch.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. Hello. Welcome back. I'm here with Omid, the founder of Tech Arena. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you built?
Hi, Seb. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Omid Eklasi. I'm the founder and CEO of Tech Arena. And, you know, we're mainly a physical, but also a digital platform, bringing together the people who are actually, you know, enabling and creating change and building things in our society. So founders, of course, business leaders, investors, people who make decisions, so politicians, experts. And our goal is to get them, you know, in the same room to share ideas, to network, and ultimately we want them to do business. So we're mainly known for our two large-scale events. So one's happening in Stockholm, and one's happening in a small island in Sweden called Gotland. Within these two events, we bring together 18,000 participants from more than 120 countries. But the whole Tech Arena, you know, it's built upon how can we support founders to grow their business. So we also have 2 yearly competitions for entrepreneurs. We do have for 6 years, we've been running an accelerator program for female founders because, you know, it's they receive a small amount of the total investments made in startups. So we help them to raise funds. And we also do these international delegations, bringing Swedish and Nordic companies abroad. But mainly, you know, the most important, if we open up the Nordics and Sweden for investors, entrepreneurs, and corporates to come here.
Amazing. And look, there's lots to get into. Like the ecosystem at the moment in the Nordics, Sweden and around is just like crazy. Like every week is like another startup raising another big round, either like small scale, but also, yeah, like Lagora, Lovable, Tandem Health. There's like every week, there's more going on. So I think my first question would be, what's it like in that part of the world now? You know, you've been building this for a long time, but right now it feels like it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting, you know. It's like every day you wake up and then you see a new unicorn. And then I mean, it's a whole new generation. It's like it's a new breed of entrepreneurs that have risen now. I mean, it feels like almost like a, phenomenon. You see this, you have cultural phenomena, you have societal phenomena. You sometimes get this in sports. I mean, to take an example, like you have this like very small region in which is Dagestan, and they pop up. They are one UFC champion after the other one. And then I think I saw the same thing happened in a village next to where I lived, where we got this immigrant to start coaching wrestlers, and all of these kids went there. They became better, and as they became better, more and more people came. They created a community around it, and suddenly, no one wanted to wrestle them in Sweden, so they went out and becoming European champion, world champions. And I think I see the same thing when it comes to like the entrepreneurial scene in Stockholm. Like you have the knowledge, you have the expertise, and then you start attracting the talents. And now, I mean, when it comes to the AI, you always also have the market, right? So I think it's the perfect time, and I think that we will see a lot of new companies popping up.
And tell me a bit about Tech Arena then. I think is it coming up to its 12th year? Is that right?
Yeah. So we started Tech Arena 12 years ago. I joined a business group. It was a mix between a private incubator and an investment firm. And, and in Sweden, researchers, they own their own IP, and everybody's talking about, we have all this amazing research, but no one is working to commercialize it. So that's exactly what we did. So we worked with researchers to very systematically, take their ideas and create commercially viable companies. We had 10 holdings, everything from, medical technology, creating individualized implant to help people with arthritis, to advanced material. So we had this one material that later came to be used in the Formula One cars as the outer layer of the brakes. And, working with this company, my role was to, there's a lot of R&D focus currently in these holdings. You need to work towards making them more commercial. And then I got the opportunity to work so closely with the entrepreneurs and founders. And I learned that building a regular company, it's hard. Building like these type of research intense companies is next to impossible. So we made it kind of our mission to, let's start helping founders to do the same journey as we are trying to do with our company. So we created this first Tech Arena Challenge, which was an entrepreneurship competition. We went out in our network, we gathered 30 finalists. We come to this cinema, this theater where we have the finals, and 8 people show up. So we started out, it was not the best event, but, the next day, we had this, we brought together, we have this gathering, bringing together all of the finalists. We brought some people from industrial sector, from the corporate sector, media was there as well, and investors. And then we saw that this small gathering, that came the next day, it had so much value. Companies got investments, almost all of the finalists, they started to get traction in the media. Some of them got clients. And Tech Arena today is the same thing. It's the same concept, but much, much, much bigger.
Amazing. No, I mean, I was looking at both the prior guests and the guests that you've got coming on.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, like from Richard Branson, Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Lovable, like, there's no guest too big.
No.
How have you done that? I mean, from 8 people in a cinema to getting the biggest founders and entrepreneurs on a stage in Stockholm, how did that happen?
I would say the never give up mentality. I think the never give up mentality. So I told you about, we have 2 events. So one is in an island in Sweden, and this event is the biggest public event in Sweden, gathering like politicians, all of the large corporations, and we have a part of that, right? So it's not all our event, but we have a part of it. And for this specific event, we had the opportunity the first year to have like 2 days of seminars. And we decided to, okay, let's see, we want the biggest name. So we were quite naive, right? This is like, I don't know, 10, 11 years. We want the biggest name. So we asked the CEO of Saab, the CEO of Volvo, the CEO of AstraZeneca. We basically asked all of the CEOs in Sweden. And for some reason, like 8 of them showed up. So they came. And then we had these seminars. And then I learned that, okay, so no one sees how many people you ask, right? They just see the final results. And once you accomplish that, once you know, the next year when we say that, okay, so you want to come and join us, and they say who's been there, and then you name drop these people, then they understand, okay, this is the high level event. So I think this is a learning we took with us. Of course, going from, you know, a CEO of a Swedish company to Richard Branson, that's something else. But I think it's the same context that applies to get Al Gore. We were in talks with his team for like 2.5 or 3 years. When we finally had like the right timings, probably he wanted to do some business in Sweden. So, you know, you just have to be resilient.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know, you obviously got the big event. I think it's in February. Is that the next one in Stockholm?
Yeah, 11th and 12th of February in the National Football Stadium of Sweden.
I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, can you go bigger? You know, what's the vision for the next 10 years? Like, what would you like it to become over time?
I would say that the goal is to bring together. I want to be the most relevant event in Europe. I know that it's hard for us to compete with some of the events. They have like 180 or 200,000 participants. But I want like the top 3 people from each large-scale corporation to come. I want the best founders to come. I want the best investors to be here. And I think if you look at that, then you don't need to become much bigger than we are right now. So this year will be 12,000. I think the maximum, you know, seated, the arena can take up to 55,000. But I think if people want to be able to move around and, you know, be on the pitch floor, then it's like 15,000. And I think like the bringing together the 15,000 brightest people like in the Nordics, in Europe and all around the world, I think that's the goal for us. And another thing that I want to create is that I want to become the bridge between the Nordics and the outside world, if you want to say so. So there's a lot of interest in coming here. There's a lot of interest for the Swedish market, for the Swedish corporations, but for a lot of these kind of bigger, let's say, investors or brands, or, you know, they need something to come to. You know, they cannot just show up. And when you have a large-scale event like this, it becomes like an attraction, and it becomes something for people to gather around. So that's the kind of long-term goal for us.
Amazing. And I guess, you know, I'm at the start of my journey. You know, my business is only a few months old, but sort of in a similar space. And then I'm looking at maybe doing some events next year. What kind of advice would you give to somebody starting in this space? Because the events just look so challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you have a vision and you know what type of people you want to do it for, so I think you need to. So when we started, one of the things that have enabled us to do it this far was that when we started, we really didn't need to make any money out of it. So we could see that, okay, we want to do this for founders. And then we built everything around for founders. So if we have a competition, it was free for founders. And if we have like if we want to spotlight something, it was the founders. The best time, like the finals, it's at like a bigger stage. So everything we did was for the founders, and then we could have some integrity, because I would say like that's one of the key elements when you do these type of events, that you have some kind of integrity, you know why you're doing it, and then I think just go with it, because the first year you will have some, I mean, you cannot plan for everything, right? And to be honest, I think like we've done it now twice in this large scale setting. The first year, everything was chaos. So we came here, we actually lived in the football stadium for like 1 week almost. Like we slept in a hotel next to it, but we would go home like, I don't know, 2 a.m, come back like 4 hours later. I had no idea how it would turn out, but it showed that like the energy and everything around it was so good, because people, you know, if you bring the right people, it's almost like a wedding. Like they want this to go well. They want to support you. So that creates an atmosphere. So I would say like, just do it.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, people generally are supportive of things like this that lift up the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about the sort of the Swedish, the Nordic ecosystem at the moment that has made it such an innovation hub?
Yeah, I think you know, I always get this question, and I know like you could bring it back for many years and say like, okay, you know, they had this kind of like PC initiatives, and then like many years ago they had like instrument music initiatives. But I think most recently, you know, education is free, and then we have a lot of role models, and then we see that, and people are very like, especially like students, they're very eager to try. And currently, I think right now it's the best time. You always say, you know, you use this kind of analogies like, okay, shoot, shoot, aim, fire, you know, or you say like fail fast. And I think now is the perfect period to actually do it, right? So you see all of this, if you look at currently, you see all of these AI startups. If you just look behind the hoods and see what some of them have done previously, they might have started like 2 or 3 companies, like within the last 2 years that failed. But they go out, they know how the technology works, they know the opportunities, they know the possibilities. They go to an industry or something that they want to solve, create a product they want to create, they do it, they see, it doesn't work. Okay, let's try something else. And I think this is brilliant. I think that's exactly the type of mindset that you should have. Try it quite fast. And if you see there's a market, just go with it.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, and there's just there's something in the water, it seems, at Stockholm, because it's just there's something that's just.
Yeah, you're right. So if you look at Stockholm currently, so you had this kind of Silicon Valley effect previously, right? You have some companies that make it, and then you have, and I think you in Stockholm as well, like you see the Klarnas, you see the Spotifys, you have a management team, or you have a team of leadership, let's say 5 people, 10 people, 200 people, they're, part of this kind of journey with you, right? It's very, very fast. Like, okay, you're launching the product, you're gaining customers, you're going to the US, you're doing deals. And the people who kind of are part of this journey and learn, they get a lot of knowledge, they get a lot of experience, and, quite importantly as well, they get some money. So then that trickles down into the ecosystem. So, one of the things that I've seen during my many years at Techarena is that we get a lot of data from the companies that actually apply to our competition. So then like 4 or 5 years ago, I started to get these companies that, okay, previously, I don't know, this person at Klarna, previously this person at Spotify. So, so companies founded by previous people who worked there, or, they had investments from people who had worked there. And I actually saw a company that had an idea and they did an IPO like within 1 year. And they wrote it in their application. Within 1 year, we'll be on the Nasdaq stock exchange. And they did it because they know exactly, how to do it, what the problem is. They have access to capital. So I think that that's something that we will see more and more, right? When you have this, how would you say, when you have a lot of companies that are founded, then it's more likely that some of them actually get, get to be very successful.
That's such an interesting story. What startup is that? That's crazy.
They call the Check-In. So I don't know if they might have changed names, but I also have another story that I think is quite fascinating. So, the winner of Techarena 2024, it was Legora, and back then the name was Leia. So, we've given out, 60, 70 awards throughout my time. And every time, someone is called up and then named the winner, they come up and they're like, they're so surprised. And, they're genuinely like happy and surprised that they won. And then Max Unison, who is the founder, got the question like, okay, so was this a surprise to you? And I think like he understood that he should say yes. And no, yes, but then he was like, you could see on his facial expression, no, it was not a surprise for him because he expected to win. Yeah. And during the whole event, the only thing that he had done, he said, I didn't think so much about the competition. I've just pitched and I'm taking meetings with clients. And this is like, they've just been around for 6 months. And I think this type of mentality where people know, what they want to do, failure is not an option, and they have this very, very like focused mindset. I think that's kind of a, I think that's something that we will see more and more, especially in these kind of new companies that are coming.
That's an amazing, validation of the model as well. Lagora is one of the most interesting companies of this year, just become a unicorn. I mean, do you do any investing personally, or is that something that you want to do or you do more of?
So currently not so much. So I've started another company called Voxo AI. And let's say we didn't do AI, but we do a lot of the things that the new AI company do, but we did it 6 or 7 years ago, so we were a bit too early for the market.
Yeah.
So currently, like everything I do is just supporting Voxo and running Tech Arena. So no outside investments as of now.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you seem to be stacking up amazing success stories. And what are some of the impacts of that? Like, do those people then help spread the word, get other people to the event? Has it created a sort of network effect across the Nordics?
Yeah. So I think that for us, like the validation I get is like, okay, how many meetings did you have last year at Tech Arena? And one of the things that we want to create at Tech Arena, so one of the reasons that we might differ a bit from other ones, is that either you have these events that are purely focused on investors and startups, right? You want to have founders and investors. Or you have the large scale events that are focused on, let's call them executives, but you also have some investors and startups going there. But we want to create something where all of them are like, there's a balance. And one of the best kind of feedbacks I've received from startups at Tech Arena is that, okay, so we are 2 co-founders. This is last year. They said we're 2 co-founders. One of us had more than 10 meetings with investors, and one of us had more than 10 meetings with potential customers. And it's at the same event. So, we want to bring the biggest brands. We want to bring a lot of executives. So I would say that 40% of the participants are executives, and then 60% are startups and investors. But I think this is needed because if you build a company, money is one part, getting funding is one part of it, right? And I mean, you can never build a company on just funding. You need to have clients. So this is something that I learned quite early on. That's why I told you the story about being part of this business group, because what we've learned when you take something to the market is that it's good to have a paying customer directly or as soon as possible, or someone who can help you with the pilot. And when we, like 12 years ago, this was something that people would say, but wow, you have paying customers that early. Now, like every application I get, like the company's been there for 1 week and they all have an investor and paying customers. So, I mean, so like the entrepreneurship game have stacked up.
Yeah, it's changed. It's a very different market than it was 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, Umid, I think we're out of time. But it looks amazing. Like the event looks phenomenal. It's an amazing thing that you've built. And yeah, thank you for coming to talk to me about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope to see you there.
Yeah, sounds good. I'd love to.
Okay, perfect. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome back to the Scaling Europe show. I'm Seb Johnson. I'm here with Nicholas Sharp, co-founder, CEO of Attio. How are you doing today?
Hey Seb, yep, really good. Excited to be on the show. Long time LinkedIn follower and fan. So yeah, really cool to be here.
It's good to hear. I am an absolute LinkedIn lunatic these days. It's good to see. It's good to hear that some people are watching and enjoying it. But first, to kick off, I want to get into the announcement last week, the Developer Platform. So can you just touch on a bit about what that is and why it's important?
Of course. It's a really big milestone for us because it marks Attio going from being a product to a platform. And I think this is, the really big transformation that we're going through. Now, why it's particularly exciting for us is really twofold. The first is that CRM is such a big piece of software for a company, and it is something that has to be so tightly integrated to companies' way of working, that the amount of features, the long tail of features, the long tail of integrations is absolutely massive. And what this allows us to do is better serve our customers in that long tail, to offer sort of far more functionality and interconnectivity with other products, and do that in a way which is really scalable. So allowing other people to build on top of Attio and essentially make it into a platform. The other reason that we think it's really exciting is that the democratization of code is very, very real. And we see this every day at Attio in the way that we work. People on the marketing and operations team being able to spin up mini apps and generate a ton of code. So that's really exciting. And us being able to give our customers the ability to generate code, have that run inside of their CRM to customize it accelerates customization into the next stratosphere. So exciting for two reasons, but we think it's a pretty pivotal moment for us.
No, it seems massive, right? The way that I look at it is almost like turning your customers and your clients into their own product managers within Attio, so that they can then like build and ship things themselves. Because I wanted to get into how you decide what products to build and who for. There's two things that are super interesting about Attio specifically in the CRM market. Yeah. The CRM market is like everybody and their dog has a CRM, right? Yes. There's like everybody has a CRM. So I guess like what's interesting about this, and like I'd like to hear your kind of more thesis about this, is like how do you decide what to build and who for? Because there must be so many feature requests. And is this about enabling customers to build their own stuff instead of asking you?
Yeah, so that's completely right. There are a lot of competitors. There's a lot to build, and historically, when you've gone shopping for a CRM, the thing that you've been sold is a very, very long feature list. And in fact, that was the job of the product team, was just to catch up, ship things, etc. We knew early on that that's not the path we wanted to go down. What we wanted to focus on was building an admittedly very horizontal platform. So there's still a lot to build, but we wanted to focus really on that being a platform. And what that means is that you build the core, and you ship the things that are universal to 80% or 90% of your customers. But that long tail where 5-10% of your customers need a feature can get built out by the ecosystem. And you can, the analogy here is something like Shopify, where they sell a great out-of-the-box e-commerce product that's going to work for most people and have the features from 90% of the market. But when you need a sales tax calculator for a niche product in a niche region, you're not going to be blocked. And what that allows you to do, what it allows us to do, is make sure that the core platform is rock solid, and we invest all of our time into that. It's already a big job. It's already a very horizontal product. And then we provide the tools for people to build this really these amazing experiences on top of the product. Now, that will be a combination of apps in our app store that people go and just one-click install. But if your problem is even nicher than that, you might want to do it yourself. And fortunately, because of LLMs, that's likely to be a single prompt away.
Yeah, and when you talk about these people who are not just clicking on the box and enabling an integration or whatever bit of functionality, you're talking about these people who are going in and using both the LLMs and code to build their own functionalities or features. I had to work in a RevOps role for a very short period of time when I was at a very early stage startup, essentially plugging a gap when the person left. And we were looking to hire for somebody, and we were essentially looking for like a Salesforce expert.
Yes.
Do you see a future in which, there becomes a whole new plethora of jobs which are like Attio experts who don't just know a way around the CRM, but are also very proficient at building these niche or edge cases, in the system itself?
Yes, and we see this already today, and it's awesome. So we have a really, really a flourishing ecosystem of experts, and this is something we've been working on for a while now. It just grows every day, every week. we have a experts page up, or a whole section of our website where you can go and find experts. You can see reviews, you can see the work that they've done, etc. So that's definitely something that we're seeing. But the goal here for us is to support those experts, of course, but also to make sure that the product is so easy to adopt, so easy to use, that the time you'll need an expert for is vastly reduced compared to the legacy platforms. And ideally, in a lot of cases, you won't need an expert until your business becomes very complicated, and your demands become very, very big. The expectation here really is that for most people, this is going to be far, far, far easier to adopt than legacy platforms.
Got it. Okay. And can we touch a bit more about your product building thesis more generally? I think I've read something, I don't know if you've referred to it as well, but like you're like an engineering-led organization. Is that right? And I know you've got a lot of experience as an engineer, but is that how you describe the culture?
Yeah, we would call ourselves a product-led organization. And I think for us, product encompasses engineering, product, and design, EPD. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's the kind of the interesting distinction that I was seeing in my head. And I was looking and I couldn't find that many product managers at Attio. Yes. And so I was trying to see what's the rationale there, I guess.
So the rationale is that in the early days, me and my co-founder were the product managers. And our job was to deliver on this, to find product market fit, to deliver on this great product, and essentially be working on that every single day with customers. And we didn't feel like that was something that could be outsourced early on. It was our P0 for the company, find product market fit. Yeah. And since then things have evolved, and we've started to build out a product organization now. So we do have fantastic PMs. But again, we still share that burden amongst many people. So in a lot of organizations, PMs are the sole source of product direction, quality, etc. At Attio, that load is quite evenly distributed across the team, and we hire product engineers. The key word there being product. So you are an engineer at Attio because that's what you want to do. You want to ship a finished end product, not just write code. And the same goes for our designers, who again have big responsibility to actually get something that's brilliant into production. And so what that allows us to do is have a lighter product management layer, and share the load more evenly.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Before starting this, I worked in the product team at Deal, and it was very, very product obsessed. And I actually often believe that often engineers should be much more closely aligned with product and help shape the roadmap a lot more. I also want to go back to when you first started Attio, you were building a long time before you launched.
Yeah.
During that time, what was how did you choose what to build then? Because my view from the outside looking in was that you guys had a product vision. What you wanted to build, which is sometimes quite unusual. A lot of the consensus is ship something, see what happens. If it's rubbish, iterate really quickly, keep shipping, iterate, listen to your customers. Whereas it felt like you had this sort of master plan of we have an idea for a new type of CRM. And you did have some customers in the early days, but it felt like they were sort of helping you achieve your overall vision, rather than that sort of ship in short sprints, product iterate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we had real conviction of where the platform was going. So we had a really clear idea of what we were trying to achieve on a 5-10 year scale, and that level of conviction allowed us, I guess, to build in the shadows for a little bit longer, because we were just so convinced that this was the right path to be on. Now, what we did need help with from early customers and beta testers was the exact implementation and the refinement of those things. So we still wanted to get feedback about how something was implemented, how easy it was to use, how performant it was, all those sorts of things. And that was a really important part of the process. But we had a very, very clear idea of what we were ultimately trying to build as a platform. Now, I think the reason this was important for Attio was because none of these things make sense alone. And so if we were to ship part of the platform, if you didn't know about all of the other bits and how they were all going to connect, that thing in of itself wouldn't be very helpful. And we had to just have faith that the sum of all of these parts would be, it would be greater. The platform would be greater than the sum of all of the parts. And that was challenging at times because you're a couple of years into this build. You're thinking, I really, really hope we're right about this. And there are definitely moments where your kind of conviction wavers. But thankfully, for whatever reason, we stuck with it.
How did you find that on a personal level? I mean, I started my own media business a few months ago, and in content and in media, you get those quick wins really easily.
Yeah.
You can quickly sign a contract, you can put some content that really resonates with people, and that motivates you to keep going on and to like show you that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
How did you find it in those early years? But I guess you didn't, you weren't actively selling so hard. It must have been really difficult to see that the path ahead of you was the right one to be on.
Yeah, and I think actually the truth here is that we can sort of retrofit lots of sort of good sounding sound bites about why we did things in that particular way. But I think the reality is that I don't feel like I think we didn't feel like we had much of a choice. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The number one is we weren't surrounded by lots of tempting opportunities. So we were building in London. We hadn't really been exposed to much of the tech ecosystem. At that point, I'd actually never been to San Francisco. And so we were very much outside of the sort of all of the cool things that were happening in the startup world. And because of that, there was a sort of vibe of, well, we've just got to make this work. We don't really have another option other than making this work. And I think that, if I'm like totally honest, that was probably the driving force behind us just carrying on was kind of lack of options. So, when you're very, very determined to make something work, often you do.
Yeah, it's like there's an amazing lesson in there. We're just like what do they call it? Like burning the boats. There's like no going back now.
Exactly.
You started on the path.
Exactly.
I wanted to also talk about some of the traction that you've seen. There's a couple of things. It looks like you've signed some really amazing clients, especially new clients that are coming out of this kind of like AI native world, who are some of the leading AI companies. And you've talked about growing 4x revenue on this year. I want to talk about where that growth is coming from. Is that coming from new hyper growth companies? Is it coming from old established players that you're able to convince to come off their existing providers? And then also, what's the geographic split of it at the moment?
Okay, the easiest one to answer is the geographic split. So let's start there. We are essentially our revenue is pretty evenly split between the US and Europe, about 50-50. It's in reality, it's probably more like 50-40, with 10% coming from the rest of the world, something like that. So US, our biggest market by, or our biggest country, let's say, by far. And then Europe in totality, a close second. So that's on the geographic side. On the sort of segmentation, we have about half of our customers are tech companies, so a few thousand tech companies, and we find that most of those are, especially now, as all good startups should be, an AI company of some sort. I think that's just the default now. I think it's very difficult to build good software if you're not building very, very deliberately and thoughtfully with LLMs. And then we have a real long tail of all sorts of other businesses. So we have a very fast growing SMB, segment. We have a very fast growing services segment. So that could be everything from agencies to law firms to VCs, all those sorts of things. And actually a very diverse a very diverse customer base. So we have very little sort of concentrated risk in our customer base. There are definitely people, a growing number of people that migrate from other CRMs. And that's now becoming a pretty substantial part of what we do. We've worked on building lots of migration tooling, etc. And then, of course, because this is the CRM market where it's a near ubiquitous piece of software, you have a ton of new buyers on the market every day.
Yeah.
So every single day, companies are deciding they need a CRM, companies are being started, etc. And CRM is one of the first pieces of software you buy as a company. It's not something you defer till when you're 100 people. And so that's also a really, really big aspect of what we do.
And do you have a, given the range of your customers is super diverse, do you have a specific go-to-market method for trying to target specific niches? Is there somewhere you want to focus more on, or are you quite happy with that risk being spread out?
So there are two ways that we think about this, and I think this is important. One is that you do have to be really, really thoughtful and fairly narrow in your ICP, especially when the company's small, because you need something to focus on. It's very difficult to build a campaign, a marketing campaign, a landing page, etc., for everybody. And especially in the early days, the markets, you don't need the entirety of the market on day one. So the way that we thought about this is that we can be much narrower in the ICP of our marketing and our go-to-market than we can in the ICP of our product. The danger of being narrow in the ICP of your product is that it becomes difficult to expand into new markets when that's necessary. Yeah. And so what we've tried to do is think about the product much more as a platform, one that's going to be very horizontal, one that's going to be very customizable to different verticals, but being very deliberate in our marketing strategy. Now, the ICP that we've chosen from a go-to-market perspective, which is essentially high-growth tech companies, happens to have the benefit that these are often halo companies. There are a lot of people on the peripheries or who are sort of paying attention to the startup ecosystem that aren't necessarily startups themselves, but carry that same energy and ethos into the way that they build their business. And so what we found was that even if you target high-growth tech companies, you also end up getting a lot of penetration into other sort of adjacent markets, and that's worked really well for us.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I like seeing people like I don't know, some of your clients like Granola or Legora, like seeing those people use it. You're right; it's like quite inspiring for everybody else who wants to be like them in some way.
Exactly.
But it's also super interesting, I think, when you talk about this horizontal product, CRM, because it's so broad, you sort of have to build the full suite of products and features and functionalities from day one, even if you are only targeting that niche. Yeah. Which is I think it's such an interesting business model, and I think why you can build such massive businesses. But it'd be interesting to see how your GTM approach changes over time as that customer base diversifies and you sort of kind of gain market share in that niche. I also wanted to talk like one more last question before we do some quick fire.
Yeah, of course.
You're obviously like an AI-driven organization. Mm-hmm. You're very public about that. That's a key part of your marketing and your USP, I guess. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask, what kind of AI tools are you using internally, either as you as founder CEO, or kind of tools across the organization that you're adopting to kind of help 10x, 100x your team?
Yeah. The approach that we've taken is very much for this to be a sort of, we want bottoms up adoption. So we'll have top down enthusiasm and support for the adoption of tools. And obviously we have a team of people who are extremely ambitious and innovative and naturally want to play with the latest tools and are constantly trying to make things better. So it hasn't needed much effort, from us to kind of create that excitement in the team. But what we really try and encourage is this sort of bottoms up adoption and automation of any task that can be automated. And so when we look at what we've been able to do in the last year, the adoption of AI internally has been absolutely awesome. And we're now doing things like a lot of our reporting, a lot of this is done in Attio, a lot of our triaging, enrichment, a lot of the work that would normally have had to be very human is now all fully automated. There is also the way that we build things has changed a lot. Again, so another area where we've been able to see really big productivity gains is in engineering. And we're now in a really good cadence of some of the, a lot of code generation through AI, which allows our engineers to spend much more time doing hard things, thinking on a sort of system levels and making sure that we can scale output and scale kind of productivity without having to scale headcount at the same pace.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been, I mean, it's a very, very exciting time to be building a company because I've said this, I've said this a few times before, but it just feels so uncharted that it actually feels like you're making kind of, net new decisions and no one knows the answers at the moment, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I'm not a very good coder. All the skills that I've had have been kind of self-taught when I've needed to do something because an engineer has been unavailable. But
yeah,
just playing around with the coding tools, the AI tools available, is just insane. And my wife's an engineering manager, so like I'll try and code something and I'll ask the LLM and it'll do like 90% of the work. And I'll show it to my wife and she'll be like, "That's almost 100% correct."
Yeah.
It's an ozone. Look, to finish off, I want to do some quick fire questions if that's all right.
Of course, yeah, let's do it.
3 about US versus Europe, 1 about future growth, and a couple more. So you raised your 52 million Series B this year. Next year, a couple of years, you may be looking at Series C.
Yeah.
Who do you want on the cap table, US or European VCs?
I don't mind. And that's a very unsatisfying answer. Sorry, I can't provide you with a hot take. We focus mostly on the individual, and we have 2 American board members and 1 European board member. They're all absolutely epic, and we'll we don't go out with a particular geography in mind. We go out and find the best person we can. And actually, that's very much the philosophy of Attio. Actually, when you go out to hire, it's somewhat similar.
Interesting. Okay. Linked to that question.
Yeah.
Potential IPO in the future, US or Europe?
I think this one's an easy one. If things are, if the capital markets stay like they are, then it would be the US, just because of the liquidity and it's the economically rational thing to do at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. And engineering product talent, US or Europe?
I honestly think it's pretty neck and neck. And we hire engineering EPD in Europe. We find incredible talent here, truly incredible talent here. And we're seeing American companies land in Europe and build incredible EPD teams. So I think from a talent perspective, Europe is exceptional. And I'll give one to Team Europe on this one.
Love to hear it. I hear that all the time. The talent in Europe is phenomenal. So that's cool.
It is unbelievable. Yeah, it's really brilliant.
Linked to talent, in office versus remote.
I like to be in office, but we also in an effort to make sure that we hire the very best people that we can, we also have a lot of incredible remote colleagues. So personal preference is in office. I have 2 young kids, so again, just the rational thing for me to do is to get out the house every day. But I'm also, some of the best people that work at Attio are remote.
2 more questions. So you're on track to 4x revenue this year. Do you have any projections for 2026?
We do. They are being hotly debated internally, but I think we are. The question is how how much can we turn up the heat? And we're in the process of just really, really working out how we can turn all of the, push all of the levers to full steam ahead. So we'll tweet something when we have more confidence in the projections. But I think we're feeling pretty bullish.
Amazing. Love to hear it. That sounds like a man with a plan who's feeling confident. Final question. As a founder CEO, do you prefer building or selling?
I think it's really hard to separate these two, because I love selling a product that we're proud of.
Yeah.
And it's really unsatisfying to build something that people don't use and it doesn't get sold. So I would say it's awesome to sell a product that you're super, super proud of. And I would hate to build a product that you didn't sell. So I'm gonna give you another kind of unsatisfying answer. I love selling a product that we've built extremely well.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's still that very early stage founder mentality, right? Where you have so much responsibility for the product that you are so happy to get it in front of clients and sell it. Well, look, Nick, we're over time. I'm conscious that I don't want to take any more of your time, but thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Seb. And keep up all the good work. We're really excited to see what Europe can doing.
I love it. And look, if I can ever help at all, let me know. I love what you guys are building. I love banging the drum for European tech companies.
Cool. Thank you. Nice chatting.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
And that's it. Thank you all for joining me. It was a great episode, and I will see you next week.